You know it's this. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowed like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look up the better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheaper again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the first part of What If Naruto Enters Five Nights at Freddy's. Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of AlphaWolf00117 on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. During the Fourth Great Shinobi War, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze was fighting the Jubi, holding it back, whilst his friend and brother figure fought his ancestor, Madara Uchiha, to the death, to protect the planet from widespread genjutsu, which would enslave all. Sasuke's POV. I am being pushed to my limits fighting Madara alone. I wonder how Naruto is faring against the Jubi. Thought Sasuke as he parries yet another strike for his ancestor. He and Madara had been fighting for what seemed like days, but in all reality it was only hours. They were moving at high speed, striking with fists, feet, swords and jutsu, but no matter how hard they tried they were equally matched. Then out of nowhere Naruto appeared and punched Madara hard enough to send rocketing into a mountain, giving Naruto just enough time to give Sasuke a new seal he had been working on that increased his power level to 10 times what it was to begin with, along with giving him the ability to use his Sharingan abilities as much as he wanted until either he died or his new power level was drained back to normal levels. After he explained to Sasuke what the seal did, Sasuke agreed and allowed him to put the seal on him. Once done he activated it and felt renewed and even strong than before. Then Naruto went up in a puff of smoke, showing he was a shadow clone. By the time the shadow clone disappeared, Madara was about 30 seconds away from Sasuke and coming towards him at a very fast speed. Sasuke knew that he had to use everything he had with his newly added power and destroy the Uchiha ancestor once and for all. Once he saw Madara coming at him with an even great intent to kill after being so embarrassingly humiliated by that punch that Naruto sent him flying with, he couldn't help but smirk at the look of rage on the older Uchiha's face. Madara's POV. After being sent flying into a mountain by that annoyance Naruto, Madara Uchiha was finally pissed off. How Naruto had sent him that far, he had no idea, but he knew that once he was done with his descendant he would eradicate the nuisance which was named Naruto. After making it back to his original fight, he noticed something very wrong with his opponent's chakra levels. What? His chakra levels have now increased to 10 times what they were before. They are even succeeding my own chakra levels at this point, thought Madara as he tried and failed to hide his surprise behind a scowl. I don't know how your chakra levels increased to such a level in the time that our battle was interrupted, but I have no doubt that it was something the Namikaze did, said Madara as he tried to think of a way to be this new threat. Naruto's POV. Naruto was throwing everything in his arsenal at the Jubi, but it only slowed the beast down. Even when he used the combined powers of the Sage and the 9 bijous, he still couldn't do more than stun them. Then noticed that they were getting closer to Sasuke's fight, and he remembered that he had a special seal he had finished developing before the real Madara appeared. So with this thought in mind he made a shadow clone and gave it the seal and told it to give it to Sasuke and explain what it does. And then the shadow clone sped off to do its job. Looking back at the Jubi, he made 9 chakra arms, each showing the traits of the 9 bijou, and then made a giant boulder-sized Rasen shuriken in his hands and held it up to the chakra arms and adding all 9 of the bijou chakras to it. Once done, Naruto prayed to Kami that this would affect the primordial beast, then he threw it with all his might, yelling out demonic Senju style, Demon Senju Rasen Shuriken. The giant Rasen Shuriken flew at supersonic speeds, hitting the Jubi right in the chest hard enough that the primordial beast stumbled back a few steps to try and regain its balance. After regaining its balance, the Jubi now saw Naruto as a serious threat to its goal of world destruction and saw that the attack that was sent at him recently had actually wounded him to the point his body was taking several minutes to heal. Now seeing the level this threat, the Jubi sought to gain leverage against his enemy, sensed two strong life forces, though not as strong as his or his opponent's life force. They were very close. He knew that once he consumed their chakra he would defeat Naruto and his goals would not be endangered. Naruto noticed that the Jubi had finally been wounded and took this time to start drawing a seal that would allow him to absorb the Jubi and allow the bijus to be split from it and their consciousnesses to stay with him. Once he was done, he noticed that the Jubi had regained its balance and had started moving even faster towards Madara and Sasuke. Not wanting his friend to die, he went ahead of the beast and started to throw in many planetary Rasen shurikens at the beast to stop it and try to get it to focus on him, but the Jutsus barely slowed the beast down, and once he saw this he then started to activate the new seal after placing it over his already existing seal. Doing many hand signs, he finished with his hands together as if he was praying and stated heavenly sealing style, primordial's end, and slammed his hands onto his stomach. After doing so, golden chains came from the seal and started to wrap around the Jubi and started to slowly pull it in. The Jubi had noticed his recent opponent was gathering quite a lot of chakra, but he ignored this fact and made his way towards the two signatures he had sensed earlier. Then he felt them, chains, golden ones that seemed to be made out of pure light, were starting to wrap around his body and tried to pull him towards the one he deemed a threat. Seeing this and knowing that it meant his end, the Jubi was now officially pissed off. "Human, you dare try and imprison me once more. I will not allow this to happen. Because of you trying to seal me, you will know the pain of being the only one of your kind, ahahaha," yells the Jubi as he starts to drain Naruto's entire world of chakra. Noticing this, Naruto speeds up the sealing process and tries to seal the Jubi before it can finish draining his planet. Not know that when he sped the process he actually started to SCK in all the chakra on the plane of existence, including nature chakra, demon chakra, and human chakra. After the sealing process was completely, Naruto's body exploded in a ring of pure white energy that spread across the entire universe, and then a void of energy was created in the epicenter of the explosion, morphing into a male humanoid figure, tall almost 7 feet, with a body that looked like it was the form of perfection, built for speed, agility, strength, and flexibility. He had blonde hair that looked as if it was a mini sun, and 3 whisker marks on each side of his face, and pure blue eyes. Then more changes happened. Out of his tailbone came 10 wolf-like tails, and on his head 2 wolf ears appeared. Then on his hands and feet claws grew and looked to be sharp enough to be able to cut through pure titanium. After his body was finished, transforming clothes started to form. First was what looked like flexible steel mesh shirt and pants, then pure black gloves that seemed to SCK in the light around them, and a black t-shirt with the kanji for primordial wolf god on the back in BLD red, and an outline of a giant wolf-like creature with 10 tails standing over what seemed like a forest on the front of the shirt, also in BLD red. Also black pants appeared on him, as well as a belt with the buckle being a pure demonic-looking wolf head, made out of a metal that was indestructible. Then steel-toed combat boots appeared on his feet, and a black mask that covered his neck and his face up to right under his nose also appeared. In short terms, he looked bad but as hell. This newly formed being was a hero to his kind, but also the cause of its destruction in the end, and his name was Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Kami, the goddess of life, sister to Yami and Shinigami, goddesses of hell and death respectively. She had been watching Naruto and his life ever since he was born. She chose him to be her champion, and so did her sisters. She was very surprised with how Naruto defeated the Jubi, but was sad when she knew he was the only one left in his universe, and that he was now the new Jubi. So she went to go and meet him and help him get through what had just happened. Naruto's POV. He was crying. Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze was crying. He didn't remember all that happened, but he did know that he couldn't feel a single living thing around him. So he cried cause he knew he was now truly alone and that all his loved ones were dead. Then out of seemingly nowhere a white portal appeared and a appealing woman walked out. She was a woman of divine beauty. She had an hourglass figure, perfect melons that were neither too big nor too small, and long appealing black hair. This woman was very powerful as well. He knew immediately that if she wanted to she could wipe the floor with him, because even though their power levels were matched, he could tell she had more experience using it, much more experience. So he stayed on guard until she could be deemed trustworthy. Kami's POV. Kami could tell that his power matched her in strength and amount, but she knew she could deal with him if she needed to. Though she didn't want that to be the case, she wanted to help him move on from what had just happened to him. So she walked up to him, noticing that he was still on guard. She lowered her power intensity and walked slower, as to show she meant no harm. After noticing him relax a bit, she came closer to him and then she hugged him, putting his head on her shoulder and telling him that everything was going to be better, and that even though his people may have died, they are in a much better place, and that he will be able to visit them once he gains enough control over his power to go to the realm they are in. Naruto's POV. Hearing that I would be able to see my friends made me happy. I listened to what the woman said and I relaxed and hugged her back, thanking her. Then when she said that all I had to do was train myself to control my new powers to the point I could travel to the realm my loved ones were in, I was ecstatic. I smiled a true smile and thanked her once again before noticing I didn't know her name, so I asked, "What is your name?" "My name is Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto." "I know who you are, young Uzumaki, but I have many names, but your universe named me Kami," said the now identified Kami. Naruto, for all intents and purposes, was stumped. In front of him was Kami, the Kami. He was about to bow before she started to giggle at the look on his face. Her voice sounded like music to his ears. "How do I learn to control my power? Is there a type of training I have to do, or is it something else?" he asks her. She takes a thoughtful pose and pretended to think about it, then snapped her fingers. "There isn't actually any training that you can do other than constantly using your chakra to hide your appearance from humans, like a chakra control exercise. Other than that, you have to let your power manifest, and because you absorbed all of the old Jubi's memories, you have to unlock them as your powers manifest," she tells him. Naruto seemed to develop a small frown and then asked what he was supposed to do while he waited, since he had no idea when or how long it would take for his powers to manifest to the point he could see his loved ones again. Kami then told him that she could send him to a different universe, a random one that needed to be saved from evil's corruption. He thought on this, and well, it would seem that I don't really have a choice unless I want to be bored forever until my powers manifest, so why not? That he told Kami that he would appreciate it if she would send him to a different universe. So Kami opened a portal and hugged him once more, saying her farewells and good lucks, and he jumped into the portal and it closed. Kami's POV. After closing the portal I had opened for Naruto, I opened a portal to go back to my realm where my sisters were waiting for me. Once the portal closed behind me, I was then stopped by my sisters, who were asking what had happened to Naruto's universe, Shinigami, especially because of all the paperwork she was having to do thanks to an entire universe was destroyed. So I told them what happened. To say they were shocked was like saying Jiraiya was a pervert. When they came out of their shock, they asked me why I let Naruto go to a different universe instead of just allowing him to come here. I told them that it was because I knew that if he was to come to this realm he would never want to leave, and his loved ones, though they wanted to see him again, also wanted him to continue living on and showing the other universes why you don't mess with a shinobi. Naruto's POV. After jumping into the portal, I decided to meditate on what to do when I reach my destination. Closing my eyes and emptying my mind of unclear thoughts, I find myself in my mindscape standing in front of the 9 bijou. "So Kit, you have become a god, a primordial being at that. Now what do you plan to do?" "We will support your choice no matter what it is," said Kurama, otherwise known as the Kyubi no Yoko. "I don't exactly know what I am going to do now, Kurama. I have no idea where it is I am going, and I won't know how the society of that universe will take my appearance. I was hoping you guys might be able to help me make some clear decisions based on these facts," Naruto says, groaning at not knowing what to do. "Well, kitten, you will need to learn your surroundings for one thing. Then you must gain as much knowledge as you can on the world you appear in," stated Matatabi. Yes. Matatabi is correct, young one. To start your journey, first you must learn about what you have gotten yourself into, and that means information gathering," clarified Isabu. Naruto looked at his friends and took in what they said. He then came up with a plan. "Okay guys, here is my plan. So once I reach wherever I am headed to, I will create shadow clones that will go all around whatever nation or country I am in. Then I will take that knowledge and find out where I am needed. If I can't find anything in one area, I will move to a new location to try again. I will keep this up until I find what I am looking for." Naruto tells the bijou, who are pretty impressed at how he created a plan that would have a high rate of success in a situation like this. It seems that Cammy was correct when she told you that you were slowly gaining the memories of the old Jubi. Your brain is now processing things at almost 3 times its normal speed. Stated Kurama, getting Naruto's attention. Well, I will keep practicing my control by hiding my godly assets. While I do that, please watch for when we reach our destination, okay? Naruto said to them. Of course, kid, we will keep an eye out while you practice controlling your new powers. Kurama told him. Time skipped 2 hours. Once Naruto had gotten used to hiding his god form and voice, he was told by Kurama that they were slowing down and that this would be his stop. After thanking Kurama, Naruto left his mindscape and looked up to see in front of him was a door. Curious, he opened it and he was sucked in, with the door closing behind him. Naruto's POV. When I opened the door, I was immediately sucked in and knocked unconscious, only hearing a faint sound of a door closing. Then a little while later I wake up finding myself in a forest. So I quickly get in a meditating position and start to sense for a living creature, and to my surprise I find that I am not far from a massive area with buildings taller than the Hokage Tower. I then create about 100 shadow clones and tell them to split into groups of 2 and find any information they can on the present events of this place. Once that was done, I returned to my meditating to check on a very strange energy source I had sensed. 2 hours later. Naruto's clones had learned as much as they could, so from this city he sent them in, they then dispelled and sent all that information back to him. Since he was meditating, it was much easier to process all that information, and what he learned shocked him a little. Apparently it was the year 1990 and he found out about the incident of 1987, otherwise known as the Bite of 87. As well as the killing of 5 innocent children and the escape of the murderer. So he got up and headed for the pizzeria known as Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria. Surprised to find that it was the same place that had been giving off very strange energy pulses, and noticing that there was a "Now Hiring" sign on the front window. He made the decisions to get the job and find out what was really going on. Naruto's POV. When I entered the pizzeria, I noticed that even though this place was known for its contribution to the entertainment of kids, the animatronics didn't really appeal to me as just kid-friendly. They also seemed to be modified to appeal to the eyes of the older generation. Even though I could see that the kids either didn't notice or just didn't care. So I walked around until I saw what they called an arcade machine. Wanting to give it a try, I looked for the currency that could be used on the machine and remembered reading about credit/debit cards. Using what little information I had gathered and seeing someone nearby pulling out their own credit card at a machine in the corner, I created my own credit card and put about $1,000.000 on it for now. Then I walked over to the token dispenser, as the humans called it here, and bought enough tokens to allow me to pass some time. After a few hours had passed, it was close to closing time and I knew this was the perfect opportunity to request the night guard position. So I got up and looked to see where I needed to go in order to talk to Mr. Fazbear, but as I looked around I noticed I didn't see an office room anywhere. Thinking quickly, remembering that the animatronics knew the layout of the building and know that there was sentience of some kind in each of them, I went to go and find one of them. Freddy's POV. I was in one of the party room cleaning up, knowing that it was close to closing time. Though I had heard someone pass by the room, but when I went to check the hallways to see if someone needed assistance, I didn't see anyone. That's when someone tapped my shoulder and said, "Excuse me, but would you happen to know where I can find Mr. Fazbear's office?" It was so sudden that I had to restrain myself from turning around and punching the person that startled me. Once I got out of my shock, I remembered that this person had asked me a question. So I told them, "I am sorry sir, I am afraid I didn't hear your question." As I said this, I was turning around. Once I did, I finally noticed that this man was very different from the average human. He was very imposing, being close to 7 feet tall, almost reaching my height. I knew almost instantly that this man was not what he seemed. So I asked, "Would you please ask your question again?" In my most robotic tone. The man looked at me with a suspicious gaze, but he then waved off the apology and said, "It's not a problem, Freddy. That is your name, right?" When I nodded, he smiled and asked me his question once again. "Could you tell me where I would be able to find Mr. Fazbear?" He asked patiently. I looked at him for a second wondering why he would want to talk to the owner of the pizzeria, then I remembered that there was a, "Now hiring," sign in the front. Oh no, the man wants to be the night guard. I don't think we will be able to do much to him. He thought worriedly. Of course sir, please follow me. He told the man, and then turned around and walked towards to office room, with the man following quickly behind him. Once he got to the office door he turned towards to man and said, "Mr. Fazbear is right behind this door. Please have fun here at Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria." With a fake enthusiastic voice. Then walk away, leaving the man at the door and heading towards the others to warn them about the potential new night guard. Naruto's POV. After the animatronic bear left the hallway I turned towards the office door and knocked 3 times. I waited patiently until I heard a voice say, "Come in, please." I opened the door and walked in, closing it behind me, not knowing that a certain vixen was listening to our conversation. Mr. Fazbear's POV. I was working on defeating the evil, that is, paperwork, wishing for some kind of miracle to save me from this dreadful enemy, even if it's for a short time. When suddenly there was a knock at the door. When I heard this I was ecstatic. I quickly put down my pen and straightened my desk, and then said, "Come in, please." In my most grateful voice. When the door opened I was surprised to see a man as tall or even taller than the door frame itself. Calming myself down quickly I spoke kindly, "Please sir, come take a seat. Is there anything I can help you with?" What he said next shocked me. "Yes, I would like to know if that night guard job was still open," he said politely. I looked at him strangely and said, "Are you sure you want that job? Haven't you heard the stories of this place and the past night guards?" "Yes, I have heard the stories, but I myself would like to see if the claims are true, and if they are you won't have to worry about me quitting. I risk my life every day," he said confidently. I don't want anyone else to get hurt, but I also don't want anyone to try and break into this place and become victims of the animatronics. So this is my only chance, I thought to myself. After making the decision I told him that he would be the new night guard starting effective immediately. I then stood up along with him and he thanked me while holding out his to shake in mine. I then told him that I would show him the security room and he would have a voice recording activate at 12:01 a.m. to help him understand what goes on at night and what he needs to know about being a night guard. Foxy's POV. I was walking around the pizzeria to see if there was anyone that needed assistance when I saw Freddy and a very tall man walking down the hallway towards the office room. Thinking to myself I knew that it was none of my business. Then I looked at Freddy to see how he was acting, and saw him look at me with a look that said, "Stay there." So I went behind the corner and waited for him to come back. 10 minutes later. I was sitting on the floor patiently waiting for Freddy to come back. When I heard heavy footsteps, I stood up and walked out to talk to him. "Hi Freddy, did you need something?" I asked him politely. What he told me was surprising. He told me that the man he was just walking with was going to Mr. Fazbear, and since there was a "Now hiring" sign at the front he could only imagine that this man wanted to become the new night guard. Even after all those other night guards were killed. I asked him. "I'm afraid so," he said sadly. I then asked him what he wanted me to do. When he told me to eavesdrop on the man in the office room I gladly accepted and ran towards the office room door. Once there I silently put my ear to the door and listened to their conversation. I widened my eyes when I heard the man say that he wanted to be the new night guard even when he had read about the past deaths. What really got me though, was the fact that Mr. Fazbear agreed and told him that he would be starting today. That's when I gasped, "Oh no, I got to go tell Freddy and the others." I thought quickly, I then ran quietly back down the hallway and to the stage room to tell them. Not knowing that the new night guard had heard me gasp and knew that he was being watched. Naruto's POV. Later that night I was in the security room, looked through the cameras and saw that the kitchen camera was offline, so I made a shadow clone and told it to go to the kitchen and fix the camera. When the clone dispelled I checked the kitchen camera again and saw that it apparently had night vision since there were no lights in the kitchen that stayed on after hours. When it became 12:01 a.m. the phone in the drawer started to ring. Remembering what Mr. Fazbear said, I opened the drawer so I could hear the recording clearly as I didn't want to miss any information. Man, that recording was pretty detailed on the ways that you would die. Though I know I would survive being put in one of the suits, I would prefer just using my godly form. Naruto thought to himself. Hey kid, what about the animatronics? Weren't you talking about how they are more than they seem? Kurama asked him. Yeah, there is definitely more to them than meets the eye. I said to Kurama. Then maybe you should watch them with the cameras. Kurama told him. Yeah, I will Kurama, but to do that I need to focus, so I will chat with you later or if there is a serious emergency, told him quickly. Then I looked towards the tablet that was connected to the cameras and changed to the stage camera. While I was watching them closely I didn't notice that my power was already running low. It was only 3 AM and I was at 20% power. Knowing that I couldn't do anything to gain power back, I quickly put the tablet on standby and decided to check it every 30 minutes. 1 hour later. It was now 4 AM and I was at 15% power. That's when I checked the stage camera and saw something that actually surprised me by a large margin. Bonnie the bunny had left the stage and Freddy was looking at me. Now the guy on the recording warned me about the night mode these animatronics had, but I know that Freddy looking directly at the camera and having his mouth open meant that there was more to it than a night mode. It seemed to me that these animatronics are alive and I was willing to bet it had to do with their strange energy. Bonnie's POV. It was 4 AM and I had decided to move into a different room. So moving quietly, making sure to disrupt the camera feed just in case the new night guard was watching. I quickly walked to the parts and service room and stood in front of the camera, leaning to the side a little and not blinking. Once in position I waited for what seemed like hours, but it was only a few minutes. Then the camera activated and I held a breath I didn't know I was holding. Then all of a sudden I saw the camera deactivate and wondered what the night guard was doing. He should have been at least somewhat startled or should have yelped loudly, but there was no sound coming from the security room. What he didn't know was that Naruto had started to meditate to see what he was going to do next. So he didn't expect to see the camera in the hallway activate as soon as he walked into the hallway. This worried him greatly. If the night guard could predict where he was coming from, then he would not be able to sneak up on him. So he disrupted the camera again and walked quickly to party area. What he was doing was testing the night guard to see if it was a slide of luck that he knew where Bonnie was or if he actually knew. When he got into the party area he was not expecting the night guard to be waiting for him with a patient, happy expression. I couldn't stop myself from talking. What the hell? How did you get here before me? Also, how is it that you seem to know where I am going? I yelled and asked him, quickly putting my hands over my mouth, and berating myself for talking and shouting at the man. What I just asked him was something that normal animatronics couldn't do. I was sure that the man was going to start yelling about how he shouldn't be able to speak like that and how he was going to die. That's when he spoke. His voice was deep and had an edge to it that seemed like he had no control over. So, you are Bonnie the bunny, right? He asked me, without showing any fear or any emotion really other than happiness and a hidden sadness in his eyes. It was like he wasn't afraid of him, and he had good reason to believe so. Bonnie knew that if this man wanted to he could disable he swiftly and quietly, without warning the others. So he made sure not to try anything unless he had no other choice. Yes, you are right. Though I must ask why you don't seem to be afraid of me? I asked him in a normal voice, hoping that one of the others would wake up and walk in here. Well Bonnie, why would be afraid of you? When you haven't done anything to hurt me, he said to me with honesty in his voice. Our programming allowed us to read people's faces and body movements in case something were to happen and they either needed to protect themselves or the kids they entertained. I could tell that he was being 100% truthful with me, so I relaxed some knowing that this man would not act against me out of fear or panic. How is it that you are not surprised I can talk, or that I have human emotions? I questioned him, still a bit curious to what he had to say, though I was also stalling. It was only 4:15, so I had only been talking to him for 5 maybe 10 minutes. Hopefully one of the others will be up soon. This man is starting to worry me. I thought to myself. Then he asked me a question that no one had been able to ask them, not even the owner. Why do you really walk around at night? Don't say it's because you were programmed with a night mode. I would have thought that to be true, but when I saw that Freddy over there had turned his head towards the camera right when you left, I knew something was up. The man said to him, giving him a curious look. That is when I really started to panic a bit. This man was very smart, he knew there was more to us, just by seeing Freddy turn his head towards the camera. Most would just think of it as a bug of some sort. In the night mode programming, but this man was different. Well, it's not my place to say exactly. You would have to talk with Freddy and the others as well. I told him, thinking to myself, he'll definitely drop the question now, for sure. That's where I was wrong, this man was definitely hiding something, because he quickly replied saying, okay, where do we have to go, which made my jaw drop. What the F is wrong with this guy? He must be hiding something, I told myself. Are you sure you want to meet the others tonight and not wait until tomorrow? I asked him, making sure this man was being serious. Yes, I am completely aware that it's dangerous for me to be around you guys at night, but from what I sense, you're more than just a little shocked, and I would like to make sure you are comfortable while we talk. Even if that means me being surrounded by the other animatronics, I am completely fine with it. He said with a serious, but caring tone. This shocked me greatly, as I never met anyone, let alone a night guard, that was completely honest and show only happiness to me or the other animatronics. This guy is definitely different. I told myself once again. So I told him to follow me and walked back towards the stage. Then turning around before entering the room, I told him to wait there, or else Freddy would attack him and kill him. To my surprise, he chuckled as if I told him a joke. When I asked him what was funny, he told me, do you really think I would be afraid of a big teddy bear trying to attack me? Trust me, Bonnie, when I say that Freddy won't do anything other than question why I am there, and if he tries to attack me, I will stop him and show him that he won't be able to hurt me. To hear this from a human, even one so tall, was mind-blowing. Does he really think he could match Freddy in strength? Maybe I should see for myself before I judge him too quickly. I said to myself. Then I nodded my head and kept walking, with him right behind me. Once we entered the stage room, Freddy turned his head to the sound of me walking in, probably not paying attention to who was behind me. Then he asked me why I was coming back, and I told him the I encountered tonight guard. He looked at me strangely when I said that, and asked me what I meant by encountered. When I told him what happened, he seemed worried. He then asked me what the night guard did when I saw him. That's when he spoke up. So Freddy, we come across each other once again. Naruto said to Freddy, with a kind tone. I wondered how soon I would be able to talk to you again. He said, looking up at Freddy to see him looking back in surprise. You seem surprised, Freddy, that I thought you were keeping an eye on me, you know, because you had that cute vixen eavesdrop on my talk with Mr. Fazbear. He said, giving Freddy a raised eyebrow as if to say, seriously. Freddy's POV. To say that I was shocked was an understatement. I did not expect the night guard to walk with Bonnie and come into a room where he is surrounded by animatronics with the capability to kill him, and not be afraid in the slightest. So I asked, what are you doing here, when you know that we can easily trap you and kill you? Also, how did you know about Foxy listening to your conversation with Mr. Fazbear? Said Fox poked her head out of her curtains and was wondering the same thing. Oh, that? Well, first I wanted to talk to you guys and get to know you. Since I will be working here, I wanted to get to know my associates. Second, I heard the cute vixen, who seems to look like her name Sasuke, gasp when Mr. Fazbear agreed to let me become the new night guard. He said, while smirking when he noticed a certain vixen blush when he complimented her looks. I raised my eyebrow at the man's response. Then wondered why he complimented Foxy as if he liked her or was flirting. Either way, it was strange, as none of the other humans see us as anything other than pieces of machinery. So I asked, why do you act as if you care about us? When I saw him look at me curiously, I told him about how humans normally treat us as just pieces of hardware and nothing more. Once I finished my explanation, he seemed angry for some reason. Naruto's POV. When I heard Freddy's explanation on how humans treated these guys, I was mad. No, I was downright pissed. I almost lost control of my transformation that hid my special features. I looked around and saw that everyone was looking down, and even the vixen in her cove was tearing up and trying to hold back her sniffling. That's when I looked back at Freddy and asked him, no longer hiding my godly voice, "Do you really think that I am human, Freddy?" Causing everyone to immediately look at me with shock. Freddy snapped out of his shock and asked me, "Why do you say you're not human, and why did your voice just change?" Not knowing that he would regret asking those questions. I smirked at him, and said, "Just keep looking at me and you will see why I say I am not human." I then raised my hands and put them in the ram hand seal, then I pulsed my chakra and said, "Kia." That's when everyone's jaw dropped in shock and awe. Naruto was transforming before their eyes. Foxy's POV. When the night guard had asked Freddy why we thought he was human, I looked at him like he had grown a second head, and I am sure I wasn't the only one either. When Freddy asked what we were all thinking, that's when he said to keep watching him. That's when he did something that made our jaws hang open. He put his hands in some weird position and yelled something out. Then his body started to shift and wolf-like appendages appeared on him along with two sharp canine teeth poking below his upper lip. His clothes transformed altogether. It made Foxy feel a little hot under the collar. I couldn't keep my eyes off of his new appearance and my body started to automatically walk towards him. I didn't even notice I was in front of him until I heard him say my name. "Foxy. Are you okay?" he asked. That's when I felt my robotic heart beat faster than it ever has. I didn't understand what I was feeling, but I knew that I liked it. Maybe I can talk to Chica and Freddy about the way I am feeling, but for now I will keep it to myself. I told myself. Then I asked, "Are those tails and ears real?" What he did next only made me even more flustered. He looked at his tail and made them move while saying, "Do they look real to you, Vixen?" Then he reached out with one of his tails and caressed my face gently, letting it drop back down unintentionally or intentionally, swiping it down my chest. Tickling the bare skin, causing me to shudder at the touch. When that happened, I looked up at him to see him looking directly at me with a genuine smile on his face. That's when he said, "I think that we will get along just fine, you and I, especially Foxy. For we have more in common than you would expect." Making me wonder what he meant. That's when Naruto looked at the clock and said, It seems we have run out of time. Well, we can continue this talk tomorrow night." Causing us to look at it as well, seeing that it was 5 minutes to 6 a.m. I looked back at him and then I looked down, knowing that I wouldn't see him again till midnight. Then I felt a clawed hand gently touch my chin, and lifted my head to see that it was him. I asked him what he was doing and he did something that would make me smile until the next night. He kissed me right on the cheek, and it was almost on the lips, with only the corner of his mouth skimming against mine. "Until we meet again, sweet Vixen, keep smiling for me, and don't forget that I will hear tomorrow," he told me. Then he just disappeared and I went back to my cove, while the others went onto the stage and we waited. Naruto's POV. It was around 4 p.m. and I was going to the pizzeria to see if I could talk to Foxy some more in her cove. That thought immediately changed once I saw Mr. Fazbear talking to some construction workers and the animatronics were in some kind of armored van. Then I saw them, more animatronics, ones that looked more advanced, somewhat smaller, and most of all more kid-friendly. Though they still have the extra anatomy. When Naruto walked up to the restaurant, Mr. Fazbear noticed him and said, "Naruto, my boy, you're early, but not matter, we could use you help." I looked at him questioningly, and nodded my head and asked him what he needed help with. He told me that the construction workers had just finished the expansions on the building, but that the equipment they used to transport the animatronics was broken. That's when I said, "So you wanted to know if I thought I could pick the animatronics up myself and take them in, right?" Making him nodded in response with almost a desperate look. Yeah, I think I can manage that," I told him, and then walk over to the armored van, and looked at the animatronics, trying to decide which one I should carry first and whether or not I should power them back up. When I hear Mr. Fazbear say, "Oh, and Naruto, please be sure to power the animatronics back up if you would please." Seeing me nod to him, he smiled gratefully and said, "Thank you Naruto." Then went back to talking to the construction workers. That answers my recent question, but what about who I choose to take in first? Might as well pick my favorite so far. He says to himself out loud, not knowing that all of the animatronics could still hear him even in sleep mode. So when Foxy was picked up first, she blushed when she felt his muscles through his shirt and at the fact he thought of her as his favorite. While this was happening, Mr. Fazbear and the construction crew gaped at how this man could lift a half-ton robot as if it was a newborn baby. It was a baffling sight to see, and Mr. Fazbear was now not as surprised to see how he lasted the night at the pizzeria. The new animatronics were shocked. Was there actually someone that cared for their kind enough to see them as more than just machines? If so, who is this person and why are they Fazbear's night guard? They had many questions for their older counterparts and they were going to get some answers. What they didn't know was that Naruto could sense everyone's reaction, including theirs. So he decided to activate all the older animatronics first and talk to them about the new ones. Once Naruto got inside of Foxy's cove, he took her to the cove's backstage area where her captain's quarters were. Once inside, he laid her on the bed and reactivated her. Foxy's POV. I could tell we were inside the pizzeria, but I didn't know where until I felt myself being laid across a mattress and my activation sequence was starting up. After what seemed like hours, but was actually a few minutes, I could open my eyes again. Trying to sit up, I almost fell off the bed if the guard, or Naruto if I heard Mr. Fazbear correctly, hadn't wrapped his arm around my torso to keep me balanced. My blush was so bright at the contact that I was practically glowing. When I heard him chuckle at how I was reacting, I pouted, "Don't you laugh at me, Wolfie, I can't help it that you're the most attractive person that I have ever met. In fact, in all honesty, not many people that come to this place can say they are attractive. So not my fault, DMN it." I said as I didn't like the fact he was laughing at me. When I turned to look at him, I saw that he had a shocked look on his face. "What?" I asked nervously, hoping he didn't hate me for yelling at him. He snapped himself out of his shock and said, "Wow, I didn't know you could be so cute when you're angry." Making me blush yet another shade of red. Now it was my turn to look shocked, but he quickly changed that when he said, "I knew that you guys heard me talking about picking my favorite of the group so far and taking them in first. I could also sense your reactions, even the newer animatronics. It seems they have questions, and that you liked the fact I said you were my favorite." While he said this, he finished with a fox-like grin, also making me subconsciously rub my thighs together, seeing all his sharp teeth. Dirty thoughts of us do different positions on this very bed were popping into my head, but I quickly squashed that down when I saw him make a face that seemed to say, "Could you tell me why?" That's when I knew I was caught. Looking down, I sighed, telling myself that I might as well get this over with. So gathering all my courage, I took a big risk and I told him to close his eyes. Once he did, I quietly got up and straddled his waist, causing him to flinch unexpectedly. Though I noticed this, I decided to ask about it later. Right now I wanted to be a little daring. So I gently grabbed his face and brought it down to mine and kissed him right on the lips. He almost immediately kissed back with his arms wrapping around my waist and pulling me closer, making me slightly, enjoying the feel of his soft lips on mine. Then his hand started to go south, causing me to smirk slightly at how daring he was getting himself. Then I gasped, ending the kiss and waiting for what he would say to such an action. To my utter surprise, he attacked my lips once more, with a passion almost. His hands roaming up and down my back, making me again. This time though, when I I opened my mouth just for a split second, but that was all he needed. His tongue attacked the insides of my mouth. I was in like putty in his hands and I was loving every second of it. I tried to get my tongue into the battle as well, but he wouldn't let me get that pleasure so easily. So I did something that made him lost concentration. I start to grind against his PP with mine, feeling quite the bulge beneath those clothes. When I did this, his assault on my mouth quickly ceased, but that's when I start my own assault. Moving quickly, I stuck my tongue into his mouth, noticing the taste of ramen, if I am correct. I heard him groan a little, but not much. This made me start grinding harder, which effectively made both our escalate. Ending the kiss, I stared into his eyes, and then said, I guess this makes us a thing, huh? Making him smile a genuine smile and then chuckle and lean next to my ear whispering huskily, yes, I guess so my sweet vixen. Causing me to shudder, and the negative thoughts to come back with a vengeance. Naruto then stood up making sure I had a grip on him, and then laid me down and said, I need to go and get the others Foxy. As much as I want to stay here and continue our battle of tongues, they don't deserve to be out there in sleep mode. Once I turn them back on tell them what I told you about the newer animatronics, okay? Seeing me nod, he smiled and kissed me once more on the lips and said, okay I will be back soon with the others so why don't you so calm down, and freshen up a bit. Making me look at myself, seeing that my fur was matted down and sweaty, and my hair was a little frizzy as well, it made it seem like I had just woken up from a very good dream. Blushing when I made that realization, I look at the one responsible for my condition, and look at him up and down, that's when I saw something that made me smirk in victory. Naruto either had his flashlight in his pocket or someone was very happy to be around me. He noticed where I was looking and saw my smirk, looking down he also noticed his situation, and cough in the hand slightly. Ahem, that's natural. He said, trying to play it off even though she could clearly see his blush. Aha. I answered back, making him sigh. Just as I was about to ask him if he wanted help to get rid of his predicament I saw the tent slowly go down, causing me to look up at his face seeing his face scrunched up in concentration. Maybe later then. I told myself, saying that they would take it somewhat slow at first. Naruto's POV. After getting my situation fixed, I told Foxy I would be back soon and reminded her to freshen up. Then I walked back outside, and went over to the armored van, picking up Bonnie and Chica as if they were rag dolls. I quickly took them to the stage and activated them. Seeing that they were going to take a little time I jogged back outside and grabbed Freddy, who was the heaviest of them all, weighing at 1 ton, I jogged back inside and placed him beside the others before activating him as well. Once everyone was awake I told them that I had to get the new animatronics and place them on the stage as well, that's when Foxy came in and told them that she needed to speak with them privately, and led them back to her cove. After they left I quickly walked back to the van and got the Bonnie and Chica duplicates and quickly walked back inside. Putting them down on the stage I decided to wait and get the last animatronic before I activate them. So with that in mind I turn around and walk back to the van, when I noticed something these new animatronics were all replicas of the old one, just smaller and pretty as a kid would say. So where was the Foxy look-alike? With this question in mind I turned towards Mr. Fazbear and spoke loud enough to get his attention. Once he came over to me, he asked me what I needed and I asked him if there were any more new animatronics other than the 3 I saw. With a sigh, he decided to be honest with me, and told me that there were 2 other animatronics at the sister location, but that there wasn't enough room to put them in the van. When I asked him what the animatronics looked like, he frowned, stating that one was Toy Foxy, and the other was the marionette. Raising an eyebrow I questioned him on why they couldn't fur them in the van. What he told me made my rage boil. Of course I could understand the fact that they couldn't fit the marionette in the van with the others because of the box that he was in. What made my rage boil was the fact that the engineers didn't want to do their job and fix Toy Foxy, who they apparently renamed Mangle. So calming down, and thinking, I asked him if he would like me to go retrieve the animatronics, and repair the broken one while he was at it. To say that Mr. Fazbear was astonished would be like saying Naruto was normal, he was more than astonished and quickly told me to do so as fast as I could. So picking up the Freddy look-alike, I rushed inside and set him down and ran to the others to tell them that I was going to be gone for a short while and to leave to new animatronics alone until I get back. Making sure that I had their word, I quickly made my way to the sister location, and tried to open the door. It was locked, so I did what first came to mind, walk right through. Concentrating my energy I slowly walked forward and through the locked door. Opening my eyes, I quickly got used to the darkness and saw that the place was completely run down. Looking around I didn't see any animatronics moving around so I continued making my way through the building. Then I heard it, a light music box. Think about what Mr. Fazbear said about the marionette, I quickly followed the sound. Once I reached the room the sound was come from I slowed down and walked calmly into the room, and to my surprise I saw not one but 3 animatronic. In the of the animatronics were human-like animatronics, one looked like a male child while one was the size of a female adult, both had balloons, and matched set of clothes, though the child had on red and blue, while the woman had on dark purple and violet. The third animatronic was inside of a cargo box-sized crate and was pitch black in color. That's when the 2 human-looking ones turned their heads towards me and said, "Hello, / hi." I waved my hand towards them saying, "Hey." Then I turned back towards the box and knocked on it 3 times. Then I waited. After waiting for 5 minutes I quickly got annoyed and went over to the music box and held the rotating handle, causing the music to stop abruptly. I didn't have to wait long until the marionette rose through the top of the box, not even opening it, and rubbed its eyes. Once it noticed that the music wasn't playing, it quickly turned towards me and its eyes narrowed. "Who are you, human, and why are you here?" he asked loudly, seemingly to try and intimidate me. Causing me to chuckle with mirth, "I think you have your facts twisted, puppet, I am not human." Causing all the animatronics in the room to stiffen, and look at me with a nervous expression. Don't be alarmed, my friends, as I said, I am not a human. I am something much more. I said to them in order to calm them down. I also released my true form to show them I was being honest. The marionette looked at me and saw that I was speaking the truth when I showed them my true form. Though shocked, he quickly got over it and asked me why I was here. When I told him I was sent here by Mr. Fazbear to come and get the animatronics that were left here, he nodded his head and asked me if I needed any help loading them into the truck. Imagine his surprise when I told him that I didn't come here by truck and that all I needed but to know where Toy Foxy was, telling him that I was also here to repair her and make sure that she stays repaired for good. He quickly got out of his box and motioned me to follow him. Doing so, he took me to the room called Kids Cove, and that's when I heard what sounded like constant static. Giving Marionette a questioning glance, he told me that her voice box was ripped out by one of the old guards. This made me angry enough that my power lashed out, eradicating everything it touched and scaring the SHT out of the marionette. Calming down quickly, I bring out some chakra paper and some ink and began creating a seal that would scan Mangle's database in order to find her blueprints and link to all missing parts and bring her back together, welding the metal parts back into place while generating the body parts, including skin and fur. Once he completed the seal, he placed it on the back of Mangle endoskeleton so no one could take it off, and then added chakra to it, and watched to magic happen. In a swirl of power and electricity, Mangle's body started to float in the air while the electricity arched everywhere, trying to find the missing parts of her body. After destroying the room, finding all the parts and fixing her endoskeleton, wires in the shape of human muscle formed around her limbs. Once complete, peach-colored skin grew along with fox-like ears, BLD red eyes, a mouth with luscious red lips, a muzzle, bub, a with link pink tips, as well as of gnaw. Then her fur grew in, it was a appealing pure white color, and since her clothes were also in the blueprints, they appeared being made out of some extra chakra Naruto had placed in the seal, just in case. When all was said and done, Naruto noticed that everything was dead silent. Looking around, he saw the 2 human-looking animatronics peeking through the doorway mouths agape, and the marionette on the floor passed out with what looked like oil coming out from under his mask. Looking back at Mangle, he saw her become activate and she sat up, noticing something was different. He walked over to her and asked her if she was okay, startling her in the process. When Mangle opened her mouth, she realized that she actually made a sound other than that infuriating static, and she squealed with glee. She then remembered the human-like being in front of her who was now smiling genuinely. He rose to his full height, shocking her, and then held out a clawed hand, which she took nervously and was surprised at how easily he pulled her up. Then she noticed that she could stand and she had her fur and body parts back. Once more squealing happily, she started to prance around the destroyed room. Then the marionette finally woke up from his perverted coma, saying out loud, "I had the strangest dream that you had wolf tails and ears," and put a piece of paper on Toy Foxy and she was repaired, showing of her NDE body to the world. Quickly covering his mouth, Marionette then asked, "I didn't say that out loud, did I?" Nodding his head, Naruto then pointed at his tails and ears, then at the newly repaired and clothed toy Foxy, causing Marionette to gape like a fish, to which Naruto chuckled at him. That was when Toy Foxy came to him and asked if he was the ones who fixed her, and when he nodded his head he did not expect her to grab his head and pull it into her bikini-top chest, and start trying to suffocate him, while inadvertently making him do a motorboat with her bub in his face. This caused the woman-looking animatronic to cover the child-looking animatronic's eyes and the marionette to fly back with oil coming out from under his mask again, while giggling perversely, and muttering about CC white vixens getting their bub motorboated by 10-tailed wolf hybrids. After fixing up T-Foxy, and waking Marionette, Naruto asked the marionette if there was a way to use his box as a way to carry the other animatronics. Looking at Naruto skeptically, he nodded his head and said that his contain has magical properties that allow room for just about anything. A surprise to say the least, Naruto nodded and asked him to haul the other three into the box, sighing to himself. Marionette agreed and helped them get settled in before grabbing his beloved music box, and going in himself. After the animatronic were safely in the box, Naruto teleported into an alleyway close to the pizzeria in the direction he came from and quickly walked out and towards the pizzeria. Quickly passing Mr. Fazbear and going inside to see the others wait for him and keeping an eye on the new animatronics. Setting down the box, Naruto then knocked 3 times and backed away, allowing Balloon Boy and JJ to pop out of the box. Once they got far enough from the box, a white hand poked out and Naruto saw they were having some trouble, reached over and grabbed the hand, pulling it up and with it T-Foxy. Once she was out of the way, Marionette simply floated out of the box and looked towards Naruto, saying, "Never happening again," causing Naruto to chuckle at his irritation. "Of course, my friend, for you will be living here from now on," he said to calm the marionette's anger. "Sigh, I am going to go talk with Goldie. If you need me, just flare your energy, okay, Naruto?" said the marionette, getting a look of confusion from Naruto. "Goldie? I haven't met this Goldie. Who is he?" he asks, getting a look of nervousness from the other animatronics. Then a kid-like laugh was heard throughout the building, putting Naruto on high alert, and his energy to start rising in power, making a visible outline on his body. "What was that?" he asks with a tinge of surprise in his voice. "That was Goldie, Naruto, and I think that it would be best if we wake up the others before we meet him," stated the marionette, with certainty in his voice. Getting a nod from Naruto, who goes over to the still sleeping animatronics and activates their systems. After a few minutes, the 3 animatronics opened their eyes and put a hand on their heads, groaning from being in sleep mode for so long. "Ugh, what took you guys so long?" Freddy asked, annoyed. Then he saw a human and froze, thinking, "OSHT. I just gave us away." Not knowing this was the same human that he and the others had heard about an hour ago. With that in mind, he immediately tried to make it seem like he was malfunctioning, but before he could get too far into the act, he was slapped, hard, in the face by none other than the marionette. That made him yelp in both pain and fear. "Why did you hit me, marionette? Don't you see the human behind you?" he asked carefully. "Human? What human? All I see is a man with wolf tails, ears, and claws," the marionette asked, then yelled at Freddy. Freddy, hearing this, looked back at the man he thought was human. To his shock, he then noticed that the man did indeed have wolf tails, ears, and claws. What are you?" he finally managed to ask the man, thing, whatever he was. This made Naruto sigh, and so he decided to finally tell them what he. As he was about to speak, the childlike laugh from before once again rang throughout the entire building, only this time it was coming from the security room. Curious and a little annoyed that this Goldie character was trying to play with their fear, looking over at Foxy, he saw that she was shivering and looking around in what seemed like a panic state. Wondering what was wrong with his beloved Fox, he walked over to her and wrapped her in a hug from behind, startling her. Then noticing who it was that was hugging her, she leaned into the embrace, and started feeling better. Then she remembered that they weren't alone. Yelping, she slipped out of the hug with a glowing blush, but stayed close to Naruto, who asked her why she was blushing, to which she pointed at the others who were staring at them curiously. Rubbing the back of his head sheepishly, Naruto asked, "Ahem, what is the matter, haven't you seen a guy comforting his girl?" Getting a brighter blush from Foxy as he wrapped an arm around her waist and pulled her against his muscled chest. When she looked over to the other animatronics she noticed their bewilderment and got a mischievous idea. Grinning she then turned back to Naruto and stood up on the tips of her claws, and began to make out with him. Seeing her plan he then played along, while grpng her peach cheeks, getting a squeal from her, and ended the kiss. After ending the kiss they both turned towards the other to see their reaction. It was funny to say the least. JJ was covering Balloon Boy's eyes, while she herself was blushing up a storm. Freddy, Bonnie, and Marionette were all on the ground about 3 meters away from their original spots, with oil leaking from their nose/mask. While the rest were just staring and blushing brightly, though, what they didn't know was Foxy was thinking about how she could somehow join them and get some of Naruto action herself. Later, everyone was now awake, the guys were congratulating Naruto, while the girls were doing that to Foxy, though they also were asking her about things like, how far they've gone, how long could he last, was he big. All these questions were making her turn a new shade with each passing question. Seeing his girlfriend under a lot of stress, Naruto used his powers to teleport her in his arms. When she noticed she wasn't being bombarded with questions she opened her eyes, and saw she was face to face with her new boyfriend, getting an "eep" from the female animatronic Fox. To which he just chuckled and whispered something into her ear, getting a major blush from the girl, before she calmed down and snuggled in his strong arms. "Ahem, now that everyone is up and the secret is out, let's go see what this, Goldie, wants from us," he stated firmly, leaving no room for argument. Getting looks of either fear or nervousness, but this only made him want to meet this, Goldie, even more. He had to know if she was a threat to his new family. So with that in mind he walks toward the security room with Foxy in his arms, while the others follow behind him, though a few of them were hesitant. In the security room, Goldie was sitting with his head somewhat down at an angle, knees tucked to his chest, and his arms limply on the floor. All in all he looked almost broken, save for the fact his pupils were glowing brightly with ancient power. This new night guard has power that is much older and much more powerful than I am. I must be careful with how I approach him, or he will end me swiftly. These were the thoughts that were going through the golden animatronic bear's head as the night guard and the other animatronics were heading towards the security room. Naruto could sense a strong energy, much stronger than the other animatronics. Even though the marionette was not too far behind, he still couldn't match the being's power. Even though this new energy was strong, it was like comparing a spark to a supernova. It wasn't anywhere near his power. So when he got to the security room door he gently woke Foxy up as she had fallen asleep after cuddling in his arms. After waking up he told her what was going on, and when he looked into her eyes he could once again see the fear in her orange-colored eyes. Wrapping an arm around her waist reminding her that he was at her side, and she quickly calmed down. Nodding her head telling him she was okay, they all walked into the room. He quickly looked around but didn't notice anyone, so he looked down at Foxy since he was a few inches taller than her, and saw she was staring down where the desk was. Following her gaze he finally took notice of the almost dead-looking, golden animatronic bear. Wondering why he didn't notice him when he walked into the room he quickly remembered that he was almost twice his original height and that he didn't look down when he was looking for Goldie. "So you are the one named Goldie, are you not?" he questioned the bear. That's when he felt like something was trying to enter his mind, putting up a shield to block his memories from the intruder. He let them in, and heard a voice. "Who are you?" it asked, causing him to raise an amused eyebrow. "It's a custom from where I am from, to introduce yourself before asking someone's name," he says in his mind, smirking when he senses what felt like annoyance coming from the golden animatronic in front of him. "Who I am doesn't matter, what matters is who you are, and what you are," the voice replied back with a bit of annoyance in its tone. Causing Naruto to chuckle at the golden animatronic, though Goldie took this as him being mocked and decided to look through this being's memories and find out what he fears most. Inside of Naruto's mind, Goldie had been walking for what seemed like hours, sighing he was about to give up when 9 voices spoke, you better have a good reason for being in our host's mind, Bear. They said to him in sync. Though Goldie would never admit it outright, he was now experiencing something he had felt in a long time, fear. The hallway seemed to finally come to an end, and a bright flash of light appeared, blinding him momentarily. Then Goldie felt he was no longer alone. Opening his eyes, he saw that his thoughts were correct. That in fact there were 9 massive entities surrounding him, and he meant massive. They were so massive in fact, that their claws were as wider than he was and almost 4 times as tall. He let out an audible gulp, and was currently trying not to leak any oil. Then one of them spoke. "We asked you a question, Bear, now speak or suffer the consequences," said the 80 stories tall fox. Goldie knew that in order for him to survive he would have to play by their rules or else. So answering the fox, he told them that he was trying to check the memories of the being he was in order to make sure his family was safe under said being's care. Though it seemed like he may have crossed a line, for the entities surrounding him looked pissed as F now, and their anger was aimed at him. So deciding that he wanted to live, he quickly told them his story, who he was, why he decided to infiltrate Naruto's mind, and why it was his job to protect the other animatronics. Needless to say that while the Bijou's anger was lowered, they were still upset with the fact that he would blatantly force himself into some random being's mind. After chewing Goldie out, they decided to talk to Naruto and ask him what he wanted to do. Once Naruto heard Goldie's story, he decided to let Goldie see his childhood and the war, along with how he came to be in this world. When Goldie was told he would be allowed to see these things, he told himself that it probably him with his friends and family, the growing up and going into the military, before getting shot or something, and being revived by some supernatural force. Not even considering for 1 second that this person, whatever he was now, had come from a whole different universe. So when he saw the memories, he was not ready for what he saw. He saw a child no older than 3 being thrown out of stores, orphanages, and even some medical places, for nothing, and then being chased by most of the village on his birthday, and almost being killed. These memories alone made the ancient power behind his eyes flare, and his body being covered in a pale white glow. Then he watched as the child changed into a teenager and had defeated enemy after enemy, no matter how strong. Then the war came. He watched as Naruto fought with his loved ones and was getting close to defeating his enemy, before said enemy did something that called forth an even larger entity than the 9 he was surrounded by. The tree-like creature started to kill off Naruto's friends, and was draining them of their power, giving it to Naruto's enemy. After a while, Naruto had finally beaten his enemies and sealed the creature inside of him, but then the amount of energy he had absorbed was too much and it caused him to explode. Though soon after he reformed into the being he was now. He watched how Kami, the goddess of life, appeared before Naruto and comforted him, then listened to her tell him how to see his family again, and even helped him along the way, opening a portal to his universe. That's when the memories went away and he made his decision that Naruto was the perfect man to protect his family, and he smiled. Bid the Bijous goodbye, he left Naruto's mind to speak to him face to face. Goldie's eyes brightened as he got up and looked Naruto in the eyes, taking off his hat which just appeared on his head from seemingly nowhere. He then bowed in respect to the god in front of him. Everyone seeing this gawked, except for Naruto, who was the only other one who knew why Goldie was bowing. The foxy whispered in his ear, "Why is he bowing to you?" making him chuckle softly, turning to her and told her that Goldie had seen his memories. Eyes widened, Foxy looked at Goldie, then back at Naruto, then said, "Well, don't leave us in the dark. Explain why the strongest animatronic we know is now bowing to you in respect." Getting looks that said the same thing, Naruto sighed, and looked at Goldie saying, "Go ahead, show them." Giving Goldie the go-ahead, in which he projected the exact same memories he had been shown. After seeing the memories, the girls were in tears, while the boys were angry at how Naruto was treated. Naruto, seeing his new mate cry, turned to her and told her that no matter how much he went through, that he was here now and that's all that mattered, causing her to hug him tightly, and not letting go. The other girls all followed her example and dog-piled Naruto, all crying and sobbing about how his life should have been better. Naruto then remembered that Mr. Fazbear was still here and looked at the time. It was almost 11:55 p.m. So he quickly got up and plucked everyone except for Foxy and T-Foxy and told them that they needed to get on the stage and that they didn't have a long time. Everyone hearing this quickly looked at the time and then ran like death was at their heels all the way to the stage and got into position, while Naruto walked the two foxes to Pirate's Cove. On the way to Pirate's Cove he looked back and saw Goldie standing in the hallway, and he nodded his head. Goldie saw this and nodded his head back and then faded away like a ghost. Turning his head forward, Naruto continued towards Pirate's Cove with the two appealing foxes he was holding each arm. Once there they quickly went to the back and T-Foxy told Foxy that she wanted to talk privately with Foxy and T-Foxy. So what is it that you wanted to talk about? Foxy asked. Though she could tell that T-Foxy was nervous about something, she didn't call her out. Well, I was hoping I could talk to you about Naruto. T-Foxy told her, while rubbing her left arm nervously. Raising an eyebrow, Foxy smirked. You have feelings for him, don't you? She said as she leered at T-Foxy. T-Foxy was now blushing, and quickly trying to deny it, but then lowered her head and nodded in defeat. I know I should have left it alone, he is your boyfriend after all. T-Foxy stated with her head lowered. Hey, don't be so quick to give up. You saw his life, and we all know that he's a god now, so I am sure he's going to need more than just me to save his lust. Foxy told her, gaining a look of surprise. Really? You don't mind sharing? She asked excitedly, getting a shake of the head. No, T-Foxy, I don't mind sharing, and I am sure he mind either. She told her with an amused smile. Isn't that right, Wolfie? She asked to no one in particular. Getting a slow clap from behind T-Foxy, Naruto appeared from the shadows. To tell you the truth, I am surprised you noticed my presence. Also, you are correct, I would love to be with you both. He said with a smile, getting a smile from T-Foxy, and a smirk from Foxy. Oh, I didn't sense you, hun, I just had a feeling that you would listen anyway to make sure I was safe. She told him, getting a sheepish smile, while he had a hand behind his head. Oh. He said and then chuckled. Well, either I would be happy to be mated to both of you. He told them honestly, getting them to blush. You're too sweet sometimes, Naruto, but that's why I like you, so strong yet so nice. Foxy said, hugging his arm between her melons. Come on, let's go get in position before Mr. Fazbear comes in to lock up the place. Says Naruto, getting nods, and they get into position, while he goes back to the security room. Sighing, he closes his eyes and waits for the others to wake him up. When Mr. Fazbear came inside, he was surprised to find that all the new animatronics were in their new spots and not moving around like they were said to do back at the old pizzeria. Naruto must know by now that this place isn't what it seems, he thought to himself as he heard a faint childlike laughter coming from his office. Sighing, he knew who it was, though that doesn't mean that he isn't creeped out by the fact he has to talk to said person. Sighing, he walks to his office, opens the door and goes inside. Turning around and immediately closing the door while locking it, he asks the million-dollar question, why did you need to speak to me? To say that he was baffled was an understatement. He had AF God working at his restaurant, not that he wasn't honored, but first it was haunted animatronics, now it's AF God, WTF. When Fredbear told him that his new security guard was a god, he honestly was about to ask if the teenager in the animatronic suit had gotten his hands of some type of spiritual weed, and if so, where he could get some. But before he could voice his doubt, Fredbear showed him Naruto's memories. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for more crossovers. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author AlphaWolf00117 on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.